Hello again, and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. This is Doc reporting in once again, and today, like I said in the last video, or more hinted at in the last video, we are going to be having a look at the Galactic Republic's second Enforcer, my personal favorite and a lot of other people's favorite as well, the Clone Commando. Now, if you noticed in the last video how my voice was a little bit off, and kind of is a little bit now as well, I do apologize for it. I've been fighting off something, a cold, or maybe it's the plague that's going around for the past few weeks, and it really took a toll on my voice. But it should be completely gone by the next video I do. Hopefully. Back to the Commando, they were introduced alongside the co-op mode in September of last year, and when they were introduced, they actually had a couple of really broken attributes about them, such as one of their abilities being way overtuned. Since then, though, they've been rebalanced to be more in line with the other Enforcers, but are still the best for most, if not all, the situations you will be running into. At least in my opinion, they are probably the best. But let's look at why they are so good and why they are so high on people's best reinforcement lists. Starting off, as we always do, with the basic overall stats of the Commando. He starts with 350 base health, which can be improved to 420 with the relevant star card. His health regen starts after 6 seconds of taking no damage and heals 40 health per second. This can be improved with a star card that can heal up to 140 health per second at max level. His base movement speed is slightly slower than that of normal troops, but definitely not as slow as some other units. And he has access to 2 dodge rolls that provide 20% damage reduction for most of the duration of the roll. And finally, his melee is actually unique, the wrist blade, and it's a vastly improved version of a normal trooper's, and in fact most reinforcements don't have this good of a melee either. It has way better lock-on range, tracks enemies more accurately, and deals 75 damage instead of the normal 50. But it is still usually a better option to just shoot your way out of danger, since melee in this game can be a bit inconsistent, but at least you can rest easy knowing that you do have a better melee than most other units in the game. Next up, we are going to be having a look at his primary weapon, the incredibly unique DC-17M Modular Repeating Blaster Rifle. It fires at about 480 rounds per minute, and does a max damage of 33 at close range. This leads to the DPS being 264 for body shots, and the headshot DPS to be a little over 500. But like last video's topic, the Droideka, the damage falloff is really harsh, starting at a really short 10 meters and extending out to 35 meters, where the minimum damage of 6 is reached. This leaves your long-range max DPS at around 48, which is, quite frankly, terrible. But before we come to any harsh conclusions, let's look at the rest of the blaster's mechanics, and then get to why this damage falloff isn't really a big deal for the Commando, since one of his abilities compensates more or less for the damage falloff. Now then, with all blasters in Battlefront 2, they have a certain number of shots they can fire before overheating, forcing you to play a short venting minigame if you overheat the weapon completely. You can also just vent the heat early to avoid this happening, and some weapons have longer or shorter venting sequences than others. The DC-17M, however, is entirely unique in this game, because instead of needing to cool off the blaster, you just need to reload it. You can fire 29 rounds before needing to reload. If you manually reload the weapon early, you have to wait 1.5 seconds, and then you're all ready to shoot again. If you empty the clip entirely, you don't have to play an overheat minigame at all. Instead, you just wait a slightly longer 2 seconds before you can shoot somebody. Now this does mean you can't get a gold overheat bar from playing a minigame, and I'm not even sure if you can get it from the officer's blaster command either and fire for as long as your bar is lit up. But on the other side of things, you will never risk overheating the blaster at all. However, just because the weapon can't overheat does not make you immune to disruption effects, as your weapon can and will get jammed by those kinds of abilities, and you will have to reload before you can fire again. And due to the fact the Commando does not have overload as an ability, all of the stats that I have mentioned about the DC-17M cannot be improved by one of your own abilities. But at least your close-range DPS is among the highest for Enforcers, even higher than some Enforcers with their overload ability active. But all that talk about blaster bolts, that's not the whole story behind the DC-17M. It also comes with a whole bunch of attachments to use, and while we only get access to one of them in Battlefront 2, it is the most destructive available. The anti-armor attachment is a really consistent weapon system that makes up for the Commando's lacking long-range blaster damage, with a really simple and easy-to-use attachment. It takes 2.5 seconds to equip the attachment and fire a grenade, and when they are ready to fire, you will hear a very obvious and loud sound. So loud in fact that anyone around you will hear it, be they friendlies or enemies. These grenades have a very pronounced travel arc, but it is way shallower than, let's say, the Heavy's barrage grenades, and they also travel much faster. You can fire 3 grenades before the cooldown starts, and there is a 2-second rechamber delay between each grenade. The grenades have a massive 3-meter inner damage range, in which they will deal 135 max damage to any trooper caught inside. While the damage is lower, the damage range of 3 meters is as high as some grenades with a delayed action fuse, but these grenades instantly detonate upon impact with a surface or an enemy. Their max damage range is pretty good as well at around 6 meters, but at this point the grenades will barely do any damage at all to infantry at around 5 or 6. But these grenades also have a very strong extra side effect. When shooting at shields, equipment, or vehicles, they deal massive amounts of critical damage. They will easily take out a heavy or officer turret in one hit. They can kill a full health max level officer squad shield, which is about 1400 health worth of shield. And they can also two-shot any player-controlled vehicles if aimed at weak spots, such as armor or speeders. In fact, it will easily one-shot kill any speeder the Separatists have. And they are also really effective against objectives, dealing a really good amount of damage. So if you're having to shoot at an MTT, load up the anti-armor attachment and blast all 3 of your grenades right into its face. Whatever you decided to fire them at, once you do fire all 3 of the grenades, or even just 1 or 2 of them and unequip the attachment, the cooldown is a really short 10 seconds, so you'll pretty much always have these grenades available when you need to use them. And now we're moving down a little bit on the usefulness ladder, with the Repulsor Blast ability. Now, in my personal opinion, this is definitely the weakest thing about the Commando, and there aren't really a lot of situations where you should really aim to use it, with the notable exception of being really close to an enemy and you don't want them close to you anymore, or making lightsaber heroes think twice about charging you down. The ability itself is really simple. When you activate it, there is a half-second delay, and then a 10-meter cone of the effect is projected in front of you. This pushes enemies back quite a ways, but not as good as other push effects in the game, briefly gives them the concussion effect, and deals a small 25 damage in the process. Though obviously knocking them over has its own set of advantages, such as setting them up for extra damage from your team, or pushing them off into a bottomless pit that will get them killed instantly. Again, whatever you decide to use it for or on, it has a 15-second cooldown after you use it. Now, the main reason why this ability isn't something you should really fish for too often is that it's hard to land on opponents that know you are there, because once you activate the ability, you're stuck where you activate it and can't turn to make a final adjustment. It has a really obvious animation, a very loud audio cue, and so when people see it or hear it, they can just roll out of the way and blast you in the face while you're stuck in the animation. And while it is the weakest thing about the Commando, all of his other abilities and stats more than make up for it. And it's not even like the Repulsor Blast is completely useless, it does have its utility, but this next ability is quite possibly the best in the entire game, or at least one of the best by a large margin. The Commando's middle ability, Battle Focus. It's the better, more rewarding version of Fortify, at least to me it is. This ability gives you and teammates within a 5-meter radius of you a constant 10% damage reduction, which is already a really nice effect to have. On top of that damage reduction, you will gain back health on every hit you score on enemies. From your blasters, to your melee, to your grenades, you will gain back 15 health per hit. The damage of this hit does not matter. This means with your primary DC-17M blaster, if you hit all of your shots while the ability is active, you will gain back 120 health per second. And this is further improved by the fact when you score a kill, you can gain back 55 health. And that health on kill does stack with the Enforcer star card that lets them heal on kills. which means you can get back about 105 health per kill, although this is horrifically inconsistent, and even with both star cards equipped, I have seen as low as 30 health regained on a kill, so take that max number with a grain of salt. The ability lasts for 11 seconds by default, but can be improved to 18 with star cards, which is highly recommended so that way you get the damage reduction and healing on hits and kills for longer, and after it's all said and done, it has a reasonable 20-second cooldown. Battle Focus is amazing, and allows you to survive fights that you normally wouldn't be surviving in as any other Enforcer. With the damage reduction, healing on damage and kills, and the fact that your base health is among the highest for Enforcers, means that you are a reinforcement that can go head-to-head against a villain and be able to win if you have enough skill. You have all the tools to completely ruin lightsaber heroes, explosives that go through blocks, the repulsor blast for knocking them down and getting free hits on them, and a full damage reduction and the damage avoiding rolls. And you can easily match damage with other blaster heroes while tanking through whatever damage opposing blaster heroes can throw at you, with again, your grenades going through whatever damage mitigation abilities they have, basically one-shotting Aiden's shield, your repulsor blast for getting them down on the ground and getting free damage, and that constant damage reduction and healing by shooting them more is always a good thing to stick around during a fight. Now for some tactics and then my final thoughts. The Clone Commando is without a doubt one of the best overall reinforcements in the game, which means he excels in a lot of different roles. The only real guideline you should follow is that you should try and stay close to your team so that way they can get the benefit of your Battle Focus's damage reduction. Also, helping out eliminating any vehicles that they come across, and generally just shooting everything that gets too close to you, or just push them away if you don't really want to fight them. Your goal as the Clone Commando is to make every fight you get into as unfair as possible in your favor. You outdamage normal troops at close range, you heal back from dealing damage to them, and you knock them down so that way they can't defend themselves against your onslaught. And if they try to run, blast them away with the anti-armor grenades, since they're really easy to land and does really good damage to finish off enemies that have even taken the slightest bit of damage. Really, there is no situation where you will do poorly selecting the Clone Commando, so play them as you see fit and however you can be the most effective. Now, in terms of the next video I will be doing, there's nothing specific planned. I have a lot, and I mean a lot of footage to choose from, about 300 gigs worth of footage, so there is absolutely no shortage of things that I have the option to cover. I'm debating between doing another Redux for the Jet Troopers, since basically all of them have received some changes since Ascendance did his first video on them, especially the First Order Jet Trooper. He's going to get his own video. Or maybe I will just do a hero or villain review on someone this channel hasn't taken a look at yet. Whatever it may be, I hope that you all enjoyed this video. And be sure to leave a comment if there's anything that you want me to take a look at next in particular, or maybe just have a discussion about the video. I've been reading all of your comments. I mean, even though there aren't too many of them, I do appreciate the feedback and the small little discussions that are breaking out. It makes me happy knowing that the content I'm putting out is actually being watched by people who want to watch it, so I do sincerely appreciate the feedback that you guys are giving in the comments, so keep it up. I hope all of you are staying safe and healthy in these bizarre and isolating times, but I do hope to see all of you in the next video. This is Doc from 4FS Gaming, signing off.